Hey, everybody, welcome to the channel. Hey, this is the last week that we're going to do the channel on Luke Thornton because we are going to have a brand new channel and it's going to, yeah, we're going to be rocking. It's going to be called Talking College Football with Anwar, Dan, and Luke. So going forward, follow us over there and hey, we'll get the message out to you as soon as possible. But man, this was an exciting week of college football. Dan is not going to be here today. So, Anwar, what do you think? Was it an exciting week for you as well?
Oh, it was a great week of college football. We don't normally get this many elite top 10 matchups in the first week. And, this is such an exciting week. I had a lot of plans, but, here in Japan and I still had to stay up all night and watch. So I'm going to be doing this every week, but it was especially exciting in week one to stay up and get going on this college football. And it's a great start to the season. As an Ohio State fan, trying not to be biased, it was a great start for us.
Wow, showing your true colors. We're supposed to be an unbiased show, but hey, I guess I can understand what you're talking about. It's an
I see
Ohio
the red.
State championship ring.
There you go.
Anyway, to be the champ, as they used to say in boxing, you have to beat the champ. All right, so let's do a deep dive into
Yep.
some of these games. Listen, this is not an Ohio State channel because first off, Dan is a Notre Dame and Illini fan. Anwar likes Oklahoma State as well as Ohio State, and I am a true Big Ten Ohio State Big Ten fan. So anyway, um, let's do a little deep dive on what you saw this week on the Ohio State Texas game. Anwar, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. So, Ohio State, Texas was one of the games I watched fully this week. Wow. What a game. What a defensive performance from both teams. And really from Ohio State. When you look at Ohio State, one of the biggest question marks going to the season was the defensive line, and I think those issues were solved. You have guys like Bo Atkinson, Caden Curry, and Edric Houston that worked their tails off. They were getting in the backfield. Obviously, you lose guys like Jack Sawyer and J2 Tuimoloau, but you're not going to have the same pressure. And at the beginning of the game, I didn't really see that same pressure, but it's most of their first starts. Overall, I think they did a great job, especially in the fourth quarter and red zone situations, which is what hurt Texas last year. And to see this again going to this season, that's got to be a great sign for Ohio State fans to know that you have a defense that can hold an offense like Texas out of the red zone in the fourth quarter. That was the main takeaway from this Ohio State game, was great defenses on both sides. And I'm not just talking about Ohio State. Texas really had a great game plan. They were able to hold Jeremiah Smith to maybe 5 catches, 40 yards. Covering the best wide receiver like that in 2 straight games, if you look back to the playoffs, that held Jeremiah Smith to 1 catch for 3 yards. This game, they held him for 5 catches for around 40 yards. Texas, their defensive secondary looked great. Ohio State as well. The secondary looked amazing. When you hold Arch Manning, a Heisman hopeful, to maybe 170 yards with a touchdown and interception, and with that hype, come on now. You have to be confident and optimistic about the Ohio State secondary, which has a lot of returning starters like Davidson Igbinosun and Caleb Downs. And, I think a lot of questions were answered on both sides, both the Ohio State and Texas side in that game.
I agree with almost every. I agree with everything you just said. I went back and I was looking at this game, and then I've been looking at some of the follow-up interviews afterwards. And first off, the defense is for real. And Matt Patricia did an outstanding job. I heard a comment that I don't know if it's verifiable, but watching ESPN and their breakdown of the game, and they pointed out some of the things that I had heard during the game, that when Matt Patricia was with the Patriots winning his 3 Super Bowls, one of the things that they pointed out was anytime they played against a first or second year quarterback, their winning percent was over 80%. And so when I was looking at the game, the confusion that they were throwing on Arch Manning was amazing. Now, hey, listen, let's be honest with you, with everybody. This game, both of those teams are making the playoffs. I don't think
Absolutely.
anybody's gonna doubt that, you know?
Yeah.
Alright.
See, the one thing that people get wrong with week one games is they start overreacting to what happens in week one. So a lot of people might look at that game and say, wow, these are really bad offenses, or wow, Texas is not making the playoffs. In my opinion, these are both top 10 teams, probably top five teams. So don't let week one fool you. These are still great teams. That was a defensive battle, and that's going to happen. In week one, most defenses are ahead of offenses, and you see that in multiple games across the country this week. But don't let the low score fool you. These are two elite teams. I'm sure that Texas and Ohio State will get the offenses worked out. I saw good things from both quarterbacks, Arch Manning and Julian Sayin, especially from Julian Sayin. He may not have lit up the stat line, but I saw a lot of comfortability from him. A lot of people would, going to the first start against the number one team in Texas, look freaked out. But Julian Sand looked really calm in the pocket. He was able to get the ball out. I don't believe he had any interceptions. He missed a couple throws here and there, but that's expected of a week one starter.
Well, he had the
So really,
drops. There were a
well,
couple
yeah, he
guys
had the
dropped some of those great balls they threw. I think about that one to Max Clare in the first quarter, which would have
and
resulted
Jeremiah
in a first down.
Yeah, and Jeremiah Smith in that maybe second drive had a couple drops. And listen, we know Jeremiah Smith. We're not getting that out of him for the rest of the season. I'm fully confident that he'll be able to put that behind him. And Texas defense, they play prevent zone, so that's why they were able to hold Jeremiah Smith to what those five catches. But if Jeremiah Smith is being played, man, he's gonna win every time. And Julian Sayin actually on that first drive missed a touchdown to Jeremiah Smith. That was actually the same ball that went to Max Clare, which he dropped. But if you watch the replay, you can see Jeremiah Smith getting open. He's very frustrated after that. So, yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of growth in both quarterbacks.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I'm working the board as we talk. So, hey, all right. So let's talk about the Notre Dame Miami game. That was one well of a football game. And I think it was a precursor. Excuse me, actually, it wasn't a precursor, but it to me it brought to fruition the experienced quarterback versus the young quarterback. I saw it in the LSU Clemson game where Nussmeier was lights out, you know. And Klubnik played well, but the team, I don't know if they're there yet. It's week one. Come on, it's week one. But Carson Beck last night was outstanding in that game against Notre Dame. So in that game, um, Miami seems like they cracked the code. And the code to me being the fact that their defense let them down last year, and it looks like they fixed that. I was really
Right.
impressed by their defense last.
Yeah, sure. When you're going up against Notre Dame, first of all, you're obviously going off against Jeremiah Love and Jaredarian Price. But one thing about Notre Dame that most people don't really know about is they have two great wide receivers in Jordan Faison and in Greathouse. These are two elite wide receivers. A lot of people don't get the thing that those two, Notre Dame, they're not known for having great skill position. But, I've watched them in the playoffs last year. Those are two great wide receivers that the Miami defense did a great job holding down. Once again, with Miami, you have Carson Beck fitting into this system. Last year, they had Cam Ward. And, I don't know if he could put up the same type of offense that Cam Ward has. He has a very different skill set. Carson Beck is a great pocket passer. He's very experienced. He led Georgia in passing, one of the top five quarterbacks for passing yards of Georgia history. So, I thought Carson Beck looked very comfortable in the pocket. One thing I can say about Miami's offense, their receiver production was actually great. This freshman, Malachi Tony, gonna be an absolute stud. This man was routing people up and had great run after the catch. Really, I was impressed with. I know you were hyping up Miami's defense. I want to say I thought Miami played a great offensive game, especially against that Notre Dame defense. And so it's great to see Miami working out, the transition from Cam Ward to Carson Beck. And, really the ACC had a great weekend. I don't know if
Actually,
you,
they really did.
yeah,
I was looking at there. I think I got my lighting the way I want it to go. Hey, just want to interrupt just for a quick second because Dan is not here this week. He said he will be here next week for next week's show. Just want to let everybody know. ACC looked really good. So as a whole, they looked really good. So let's go ahead and let's move on to the LSU Clemson game. All right. Did you get a chance to? I watched that game. LSU brought it. Their money that they spent on that team, it showed up. They already had with the quarterback, they looked really good. I was surprised that they were able to run as well as they could, and it seemed like they can get their receivers open when they needed to. I think that, you know, you look at them and with Alabama getting completely torn apart, okay? And, we couldn't tell what Georgia had based on who they played. I think that LSU might be the team to beat in the SEC. So we'll see going forward. All I know is that we saw some great football over the weekend.
yeah,
Let's get a
absolutely.
couple thoughts on that. It's up to you if you want to talk about the Alabama Florida State game because that is a big deal, you know.
Sure. Well, first of all, let me get my thoughts off on LSU versus Clemson. So, first of all, in this LSU versus Clemson game, the thing that I was impressed of, this is one of the games I did watch. So, I'll be fully honest with the viewers. I watched all of Ohio State, Texas. I basically watched all of LSU, Clemson. I watched about half of Notre Dame, Miami, and I was able to watch the highlights from some other games, including Alabama, FSU. But LSU, Clemson was definitely one of the games I fully watched. And, the thing that I was impressed of in that game was especially LSU's pass rush. LSU, like Miami last year, was really bogged down by their defense. And especially, it didn't make sense to me because LSU had a lot of talent coming back on defense, like Whit
Yeah.
Weeks,
Yeah.
Harold Perkins.
Harold
I
Perkins,
think that's what made,
absolutely.
yeah, that's a linebacker with great speed, great coverage ability, and can get to the quarterback. When I watched that game, I was so impressed on how first of all, they shut down the run of Clemson. I know Clemson doesn't have a returning running back, but to get that pressure in the run game on defense, as well as getting pressure on Cade Klubnik, who was many people's Heisman hopeful going to the season. And, Cade Klubnik did not have a great game, and I don't know if he's regressed. I don't think it's because he regressed. I think that it was really that LSU pass rush, which I was very impressed by.
Can I respond to that? I felt that as a whole, Clemson, for what we thought we were going to see, it didn't show up Saturday night. I thought that the line play was terrible. The quarterback still needs time to throw, okay? And he was under duress an awful lot. And he
All
got
game.
no support from that run game at all. So,
Yeah.
not trying to make excuses for the way Klubnik played, but I just for the last couple years I've seen this kid play and he can bring it, but you still have to have the opportunities to throw, okay, and to even rush the football. All right.
Right. Yeah. You look at Clay Klubnik, I don't think he's a great runner of the football, but like I would actually kind of compare him to Garrett Nussmeier a little bit. They're both well, Nussmeier is definitely more of a gunslinger. Garrett Nussmeier is going to throw it up, those 50-50 balls. But I think one thing you saw out of Garrett Nussmeier in this game was much more maturity, which, we hadn't seen him. The thing with Garrett Nussmeier is he had a big turnover issue last year. This year, he definitely seemed more mature, taking those check downs when you need to, not forcing up 50-50 balls. So if you're an LSU fan, I feel like you have to be confident, going into Death Valley on the first week of the season, especially with LSU. They've had their struggles in those week one games, losing to USC last year. There's a big monkey off their shoulder to finally get a week one win. And, like you were saying in the SEC with Bama losing and not just losing, but really looking bad. you've got to look at LSU and Georgia as the favorites. Texas is up there for sure, but with them having a week one loss, like right now, I mean, it's only week one,
It's
but
only week
you've
one.
got to be looking at LSU. You've got to look at LSU and Georgia as the favorites in the SEC. So I
Yeah.
mean, you got Florida. I know South Carolina got a big win. Lenora Sellers looked great tonight, but that was we don't know what Virginia Tech is going to look like. That wasn't a blowout game.
By no
They
means.
played it very
Yeah.
against Virginia Tech, so
That was an
can't say
emotional, I would imagine, game for the head coach. Shane
be
Beamer is his dad was a legend at Virginia Tech. It probably took on a little bit more, and I think Virginia Tech finally may be ready to make some noise in the ACC. So it's gonna it's gonna it's gonna it's gonna come down to you know mid season. We'll figure out what's
right.
going on here.
So let me ask you a question real quick. So with the Clemson loss, who are you looking at in the ACC to maybe make a run? Are you looking at a Georgia Tech with that great win over Colorado? Are you looking at FSU? Is FSU a legit? I mean, you got to obviously Miami would probably be number one right now, but are you looking at FSU as a favor in the ACC?
Well, at this point, early in the season, okay? So let's go with coaching pedigree. I'm still gonna say Dabo Sweeney figures it out. Clemson still wins the ACC, but you're right. Florida State, I don't know, man. Are they have they figured it out with Castellanos? And Miami looks for real. But I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt to Clemson, even with the loss, even with the one loss. I mean, heck, they weren't playing a little sister of the poor team. They were playing a hyped up, very expensive LSU team. So
Right.
ACC, I still see it as the pecking order being Clemson, Miami. We're not even talking about SMU. I don't know where they're going to stand this year. I know they had a nice win, but I still think status holds. I still think it's Clemson, Miami. Then I'm looking at Florida State. 'Cause we don't know about Alabama. There's so many.
Right.
There's so in week one. There's so many things you don't know. All right. So listen, one of the things that we covered when we did our very first show is we talked about a couple sleeper teams. Um, and you had Arizona State. I don't think they're a sleeper team anymore. You know, uh,
No.
that was a good win over an in-state rival. I think that I mean, and let's face it, who else from the Big 12 looked good? Because right now, what South Florida, University of South Florida, would be their top team other than Arizona State. I'm
If you
sorry,
said
I made a mistake. My
yeah, they're not.
sleeper
They're not.
team, my sleeper team, Utah looked really good the other day. So
Utah looked great. Utah looked great. Yeah, they you took it to Nico and UCLA with a lot of big expectations coming in there, and they really shut them down. So I heard that Nico had an absolutely horrific stat line. And one thing about Nico, I know the Tennessee fans are going to be ecstatic
man,
anytime he uses the game this year. So yeah.
Dan's two sleeper teams were Indiana and Illinois. They both had wins. Looked like Indiana might have struggled a little bit. Just looking at the highlights, looking at the stats, Illinois, they didn't struggle at all.
Illinois didn't struggle. Their opponent was Illinois played Western Illinois,
Yeah,
and look at the
11
records the last couple of years. Western Illinois is not just a FCS team, but they're a bad FCS team. So I'm gonna hold off judgment for Illinois this week, and I want to see Illinois play Washington, play a USC, which they do play this year. So let's wait on Illinois. They did look great week one, but with that opponent, I just don't think you could judge them yet.
So I'm going to ask you about. I know this is our ranking show, and we're saving that to the very end. Um, did you see? I know I did, but did you see any outstanding players that you want to talk about this week?
Yeah, absolutely. So one outstanding player that I've got to get shout out to is honestly Thomas Castellanos from FSU. This guy, he goes in before the season talking about Bama can't hold me. They don't have Nick Saban anymore. What are they gonna do with me? This is one of the games, like I said, I wasn't able to watch, but I fully watched the highlights of this game. And man, this Castellanos kid looks extremely quick. I think that you get something with him which you didn't have the past year before. You had it with Jordan Travis, but man, this man can run the ball. I haven't seen a quarterback looking that fast since Jalen Milroe. This kid has burners. He can run and he can, he's not super tall. He's 5'10", maybe a little undersized for a quarterback, but with that running ability from him, I saw, and the way he was able to operate the offense with a lot of confidence, I think that, the biggest winner personally, just with the storylines going to the game, I feel like it's got to be Thomas Castellanos of FSU.
Good pick. Yeah, he was outstanding. I'm gonna go in a little bit different direction, and I'm gonna take you back to a game that was on Thursday night, and it was Nebraska versus Cincinnati. And Cincinnati has this stud defensive tackle, and his last name was Corleone. I forget his first name, but I'm gonna
Dante
tell you
Corleone. Dante
that
Corleone.
kid. You said Oscar Corleone,
Dante.
man.
Dante.
Dante, man, that kid can bring it. NFL, get ready to pick up this kid. Other person I want to highlight is the center for Ohio State, Hensman. That dude dominated the middle, seemed like he had the line in correct position, and he was picking up the extra blocks and getting downfield. I'm going to be interested to see what the PFF grade was for the Ohio State offensive line and him in particular. So
Yeah, and especially with Texas, bringing back Colin Simmons, posting stuff for the game, targeting Julian Sayin, and you see how they were really able to protect Julian Sayin during that game. As I said, the Ohio State offensive line is going to be great this year, and we see that, and we won against a talented opponent. So,
okay.
looking forward towards their growth.
So I'm moving this along. Like I said, Dan is not here today, so we're not getting his input, but he did send some notes over to you. Can you briefly talk about what Dan let you know? Just briefly. You don't
Absolutely.
have to go into all the detail that you shared with me.
Don't forget, I'm one of the sections I'm very excited to answer today because I have a strong answer for this is the sleeper teams. But let me get into what Dan said this week. He said basically Clemson looked terrible, Alabama looked terrible, Texas looked terrible, Notre Dame looked bad and very worrying. If they lose to Texas A&M next week, it's fully over. Notre Dame didn't get a lot of chances, and he could see Steve Angeli, which is their backup, starting within the next 2 weeks. And Illinois looked good.
Wow. I have on my notes when we start talking about the quarterback play over the weekend, CJ Carr. But so I don't see that. Anyway, let's go ahead. We looked at Dan's notes. Thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about the quarterback play that we just saw. We wrote down a few that we wanted to talk about. We've listen, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this because we did talk about them already to a certain degree. We've already talked about Nussmeyer. I mean, look, I just saw the NFL #1 draft pick next year, right? And we know, listen, his dad is what the OC at for the Saints. Right, or is he just the quarterback? I forget what position he coaches there, but I think I thought I saw the top quarterback in the draft next year in Nussmeyer. We have Kludnick on our list, okay, and you've already kind of made it clear what you thought about Klubnik. We differed on that. We differed on that.
Let me get your thoughts. So one of the biggest question marks coming into this week was the play of Arch Manning, a Heisman hopeful. What did you think of Arch Manning's performance during the Ohio State game? Do you think be able to grow from there? Do you think there's still raw talent, or was it just the Ohio State defense? What do you feel about Arch Manning's performance for the?
That's an excellent question. Okay, the talent is still there. Okay, I don't think there was any. I also really truly believe that I'm not going to say the moment was too big. I just felt that the Ohio State defense was outstanding. If you've ever been to a live stadium, and, we've been to Ohio Stadium a lot of times, you're right? We've it's loud there, and it can be unnerving for somebody at their very first game. And then couple that with a defense that, you know, frankly, had all those guys not returned last year, those would be the starters last year for last year's team. They were primed. I mean, they were ready to go. I think the talent's still there. I don't have a problem with him. I think that he's going to learn from that one game. He looked like he was a little off. And then I was watching Dan from ESPN, and he was showing what was going on to make him be off. He couldn't get his first read in. So he was down the line trying to figure out his second and third reads and what they were doing. I did see some really cool defensive stunts. I think Arvell Reese did the old okey doke where he faked like he wasn't going, and then he went throwing off
Yeah, yeah.
the defensive tackle, left tackle for Texas. I think that, hey, this is really his first room.
Right. Right.
All right, so I wanted to ask you, did you see any of the Michigan game at all?
That is one I did not see the Michigan game, but I can say that Michigan actually like if we're looking forward towards week 2, the game I've got my eye on. I looked at the taking a look at the week 2 schedule, and I think this Michigan Oklahoma game in week 2 is gonna be absolutely huge. I read like I said, I can't say too much about Michigan this week. That's one of the games. I think they played New Mexico, beat them. The score is maybe 34-17, I think. So I can't say too much of that game. But when you're looking at Michigan going to this season, Sharon Moore year 2, Bryce Underwood, a defense that it's Michigan. They're gonna have a great defense. And they're going up against another SEC team in Oklahoma who's supposed to be taking big leaps this year, bringing in John Mateer and Jaden Ott from Cal. I'm ecstatic to watch that game. And I love the little like rivalry you get with Ohio State, Texas, and then Michigan, Oklahoma.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's
good,
almost like
great
part two.
scheduling.
Yeah, great.
I I wanted to say this. The reason why I asked about the Michigan game, Mateer, from all reports that I've seen, played outstanding, but I did get a chance to see Underwood,
How
and
do you
that
look?
kid gets the ball out fast. Was
Okay.
I listen, and the reason why I kind of took you in this direction, we saw Manning, we saw Sane, we saw what Aguiar at Indiana, we saw Simpson, and yeah, oh yeah, Tennessee. I'm sorry, that's right. And we saw Simpson at Florida in Carr, and those were all either freshmen or first time starters and they had big shows. And I thought as a whole, that group looked pretty good. When you look into the future and you see these guys, these are going to be this is the next group. I think this group of junior and senior quarterbacks are really good. They're already talking about they could go 6 to 8 deep in the NFL draft next year. This group that we just saw, those players I just talked about, are going to be very, very good. I think for the next 2 years at least, this San Underwood thing, it's going to be for real in the Big
That's gonna
Ten.
be a great, wild rivalry going on. I know you listen to the viewers out there. You may not have seen that much out of Julian Sand, but just if you're looking forward to the future, you have Jeremiah Smith coming back next year. Julian Sand's just gonna get better. This is his first start. This is his first start. Okay, against Texas. Come on now. He's gonna evolve. He's gonna be fine. The Sane Underwood rivalry is gonna be great for the next 2 years, and that's what makes college football so great.
That
You have 2 years of this. You only have 2 years of this, and I think that's what's so special. You only
Well,
get
you're
two
gonna have
years.
3 years of Underwood. He's a true freshman, not a
Yeah,
redshirt
so
freshman.
you're right. Sane is a redshirt freshman. Yeah,
But and then they all had to deal with Mr. Moore out there at Oregon because he played lights out. Of course, they didn't play the same level of competition as Ohio State did
right.
or that of CJ Carr. Dan knocked CJ Carr. I saw a young kid in that second half who seemed poised and ready to go. I'm not so sure that that game plan was best for his skill sets.
Right. From when I watched that game, you know, I felt like Notre Dame was almost treating him like a Riley Leonard from last year.
Yeah,
I saw designed quarterback runs. CJ Carr is a passer. Well, you know what? He is supposed to be a pocket passer. However, I do remember one of the touchdowns he threw. He ran about 10 yards back, did a loop, and found somebody like creating out the backfield. And I actually didn't expect to see that from him. As like he's supposed to be billed as this pocket passer, like a Kate Klubnik or Garrett Nussmeyer. But I saw a little bit of agility out of him. I hope he could, improve on that, and then I hope that the Notre Dame game plan allows him to use his abilities to the most and not put him into this Riley Leonard box. And we know what that Riley
right.
Leonard box was, which is these designed quarterback runs. And I don't think you're gonna want to have that at CJ Carr. He's not Riley Leonard. He's
No,
not.
he's not Riley Leonard at all. Let's see. We talked about Castellanos earlier. Talked it and walked it. I was surprised like last year under Bill O'Brien when he was at BC. He started off really hot, if you recall from last year. And then
Yeah.
he kind of like cooled down. And then that's when I think at that point when he was cooling down, he probably said, you know what, I'm not going to be here anyway. I don't care. I want to go someplace else. And maybe his mind was out the door at that point. Um, so let's move down. We're getting ready to do our top 12. So hold on for a second. Um, I want to go back and discuss one more time. I know we discussed it earlier. If you are an Alabama fan, okay, and listen, Kellen
You
DeBoer
want
is a
to
heck of a coach. So we're not. That's not the question. The question might be, is he the right fit for Alabama? So, are
see
you
that's
concerned? Huh?
so listen, with Kalen DeBoer, I have confidence in Kalen DeBoer. He's won everywhere he's been. He brought a Washington team to the championship. He's had explosive offenses everywhere he's been. And, he has the tools and the recruiting to do that at Bama. Bama's recruiting has been great. One thing that you've heard of when people with the talking heads with Bama, especially with their defensive performance in the last game, is this word soft. And, that's something that listen, that's something that DeBoer and Saban differ from. Saban was a tough coach. He's old school. Let's get after it. No distractions. Let's focus on football. This offseason with Bama, you've seen their players going streaming on Twitch, playing video games. You got Ryan Williams. First of all, I really like Ryan Williams, not just as a player, but his personality. Funny guy, great to watch all his interviews. But it's I don't think Saban would have his players be doing all this extra stuff. And I think that's what's got these Bama fans up in a tizzy is that, Kalen DeBoer is almost more of this modern NIL coach, very lighthearted, gonna let his players have some more freedom. And Bama was used to that very strict, old school style of coaching with Nick Saban, and they won that way. They won that way. And when you change the culture of a program, that can be difficult. You're gonna go through some growing pains. Listen, I'm still not giving judgment out on Kalen DeBoer. However, you can't go out in week one and lose the way you did to an FSU program coming off a terrible year. But give them some time. But right now, I would be a little worried just because of I don't know if he fits in the culture, which is Bama, and Bama has a established culture.
Okay. All right. So, I want to give one final comment before we get into the review. There was one other quarterback that has a lot of hype. I'm just not impressed by, and that's the quarterback at Nebraska, Raiola. I think he's quirky. I think that he's not his trying to play his own game. He's trying to copy that on Mahomes. I watched I'll say I watched most of the first half. and all of the fourth quarter. I'm not impressed. I have to say, let's see what happens with him. I expected a lot more based off all the reports that you were seeing coming out of Nebraska about him. But we'll see. I mean, when he gets into Big Ten play, you know, let's see how he plays then, as opposed to playing. Listen, that Cincinnati team's kind of surprised me. I didn't know they would be that good.
Yeah.
Play that well defensively.
In terms of that game, I was also able to watch a good chunk of that game. I would say I watched the entire second half of that game. What I saw out of Raiola, uh, he has a similar issue to what many people, I don't know if there's a lot of NFL fans watching this, but if you're an NFL fan, you've probably seen Justin Fields with the Bears. And the big complaint of Justin Fields with the Bears was that he would hold the ball too long in the pocket. And, with Fields, it was more like, I'm going to hold the ball in the pocket and then run for it. As you mentioned, Dylan Raiola is trying to copy Mahomes' play style. He's dropping back and he's holding the ball for too long in the pocket and then looking to scramble around and make sidearm throws and, backfield create. So what the issue that I saw with Rayola was just him holding onto the ball into the pocket for too long. He's not getting to his reads as fast as he needs to. And, he doesn't have the athleticism like a Justin Fields. So if you're not going to be that athletic, you can't hold on to the ball for that long in the pocket. And that's what I saw with Dylan Raiola this
Okay.
week.
Well, here I'll make a comment on Justin Fields. I think he's going to have a fantastic year with the Jets. I like the new offense.
Me too.
I just want to
Me
see the
too.
Justin Fields who was at Ohio State, man, who was at that
Right.
point a pocket passer. All of a sudden, you
I
get
know.
to the Bears, and then he sucks because you got. Well, I'll say this. Listen, I'm a Bears fan. If Nagy
I'm a
sticks
Justin Fields
around, Justin Fields was probably gotten better coaching. Eberflus sucked. Luke
fan.
Getsy
Right. Yeah.
sucked. Okay, they
Yeah.
killed
The
Justin Fields. Period. All right.
listen, I'm confident in the Bears going on with Johnson, but let me give before we get to the final top 12. Let me go over my sleeper teams.
Okay.
My sleeper teams this weekend, actually, and I think from week one, you've had all these big games, but something to look at, okay, is this group of five race. All right. So you have the favorite, Boise State,
Yeah, we missed that
after
one. Yeah.
getting destroyed by USF. And I know that you lost Genty, but Boise State was one of the teams with the top returning talent. They bring back their quarterback. They bring back that great defense from
Yeah.
last year that absolutely shut down Penn State. And you see them go out in week one and get destroyed by USF, and who had a great performance by their quarterback, Byron Brown. So I can't, is USF a team to look at? They play Florida coming up in a couple weeks, and I am excited to watch this USF Florida game. Listen, it's been week one, and I don't want to overreact, but USF looked great. Maybe that game is a game to watch out if you're a Florida fan. The one other game, and I'm talking about the group of five, is Tulane. Tulane absolutely went out and destroyed a Big Ten team. I know it's Northwestern, but they really, I was watching a bit of that game. Uh, Tulane brings in the quarterback from BYU last year who just got off the team, got kicked off the team. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but, this quarterback comes from BYU within the last couple weeks of the
Yeah.
offseason. This
Isn't
man
that
probably,
was amazing. He gets there
yeah.
late in the season, wins the starting job, and played the way he did. That was
But he played great. I was
outstanding.
watching that game. And, I wanted to see, like, Northwestern's one of those teams. We're from Chicago. I wanted to give Northwestern a look. And really, like, after watching that game, I came away impressed with Tulane. So, right now, when you're looking at the group of five and you see UNLV play terrible in that week 0 game, who's another favorite, you see Boise State getting destroyed. I don't know how you look at this group of five race, but right now I see Tulane and USF as two of the favorites.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. I think what that US, like you said, I haven't had a chance to see DJ Lagway play a lot. We're a Big Ten country, so on TV, we get the Big Ten network, we get Fox Sports, so we do get ESPN, but let's be honest with you, I'm not a big follower of all the SEC teams. I try to look at them, but I want to see Lagway, and I want to see that game. I think that's going to be a really good game. To answer your question, um, Tulane looks like, I know right now the stats say it would be USF in the playoffs over Tulane, but we'll see. I agree. I think Tulane has a lot more. They always seem to have a lot down there.
Yeah. Yeah, and they've got, their coach coming back, John Summerall, and he's bringing a lot of excitement down there. So, yeah, I'm excited to keep watching out for this group of 5 race because mainly the two favorites, UNLV and Boise State went down. Well, UNLV hasn't gone yet down yet, but they did not look good in their first couple games. So, I think now that those teams maybe not looking as good as we thought they were going to the season, the group of 5 race was, you got to remember, the group of 5 does get a team in the playoffs. The top ranked group of 5 team will get into the playoffs. You have teams like Cincinnati and UCF going into the Power 5, so they have to win their conference if they want to get into the playoffs. So now I feel like there's less talent in the group of 5, but I think the group of 5 race this year is going to be an exciting one.
Well, we'll see. There's a lot of football. So let's go ahead and let's talk about our top 12. Now, this is when I wish Dan was here because one of us seems to be unrealistic as to who is number 1. So in order, at number 12, this was the biggest controversy we had in the votes on our panel. We have South Carolina at 12, Arizona State at 11, Illinois cracked our top 10. We only dropped Clemson to 9, Notre Dame to 8, Texas to 7, Oregon is 6. That's going to be interesting because I really like the way Dante Moore played. We got Miami at number 5, LSU at 4, Georgia at 3, and here goes the big deal. All right, this is where the argument came in with the voters. Ohio State is number 2. Penn State, our preseason number 1, is still number 1. So, Anwar, how do you feel about that?
Well, if you ask the voters, which I am one of the voters, listen, this is not, obviously I'm wearing an Ohio State shirt. However, this is the least biased thing I can say. I promise I'm putting my Ohio State bias to the side on this. I can say if Texas had won that game, I would have had Texas number 1. Texas in the AP pool, not in our pool, but in the AP pool, was the number 1 ranked team. You get a week 1 win against the number 1 ranked team. What can you say about that? I think that makes you the number 1 team. I know Penn State won. They look great. They played in nobody. But, I think I'm okay. Like, with week 1, especially early into the season when you don't have a lot of data points, I'm okay a little bit more with switching up the order on week 1. And, when you go out and you beat the number 1 team in the nation and you're the number 3, it's not like Ohio State was the number 10 team or the number 8 team. They were sitting there at 3. So you go out and you beat the number 1 team. I think you can be the number 1 team the next week.
I that's great. I think one of the best things is that when you look at polls, you do have these preconceived notions based off of what you thought a team was going to be like. Case in point, we all thought or are thinking, you know, this is going to be for Florida State. They had 2 wins last year. Are they a bad team? Well, maybe we were wrong on Florida State. Okay. Maybe we were wrong on Alabama.
We
We,
could be
we,
wrong on Bama. That's one thing. We could
right.
be wrong on Bama.
We don't know, but I think that if we did, because we did have Penn State number 1, okay, they won you can only beat who's on your schedule, right? You can only play the teams on your schedule. There was no reason to knock them down below number 1. And so as one of the voters, I agree. Penn State should have stayed number 1 if we had them number 1.
For example, where I come from this on this, listen, so, and I don't remember where we had Texas ranked on week 1. Maybe we had them at the 3 spot or the 2.
They were
Listen,
in the 2. They were number
they're in the
2.
2. If so, in this magnitude of a game, this Texas Ohio State game, if Texas had won, I would have had Texas number 1. Since Ohio State won, I put them at number 1. Really, I think that was such a large season game that either way, if either team had won for me, they would have been number 1. And I'm okay with Penn State staying at number 2. They, like you said, they could only play the team on your schedule. And not only did they play their team on the schedule, they look dominant. And really, there's no reason to bump them down. For me, it's just other teams going up. And if you have one team going up, you got to have some team coming down.
Okay. All right. So, uh, I'm gonna wrap this up right now, unless you have a final thought that you wanna share that we didn't get to.
No, I don't have any this week. Nah, I'm just looking forward to week 2. Keep your eye out on that Michigan Oklahoma game. Week 2 is a little bit of a letdown in the schedule between compared to week 1. You don't have as many big games. You've got a lot of big teams. You've got Ohio State playing Grambling next week. Nobody's excited to watch that.
Wait a minute,
Uh
I'm supposed to go to that game. What are you talking about? I'm excited to go.
Well, if I was going, I'd be excited. But I don't think anybody who's not an Ohio State fan is paying attention to that Ohio State Grambling game. Uh, it's kind of crazy when you look at the schedule this week. Week 1 and 3 are packed,
Yeah.
but then for some reason, week 2 is a little bit of a letdown. So anyway, listen, look out for Michigan, Oklahoma next week. I will for sure be watching that game, and I think we'll really learn a lot from watching that game, because those are really two of the actually even more unknown than Ohio State or Texas. I think this Michigan Oklahoma game comes in with so many unknowns that I feel like we'll learn a lot going into that after that game.
Yeah. Well, this is a lot of fun doing this weekly show. We hope that you guys tune in. Again, this is the last show that we are going to post on this channel, which is the Luke Thornton channel. We are moving to our own channel. We're going big time. And the show and the channel will be called Talking College Football with Anwar, Dan, and Luke. And that's all we're going to do is we are going to talk college football. If you like our content, please, please, it doesn't cost you anything. You just get notified if we post something. Like, subscribe, and share our channel. If you are a college football fan, please do those things. And give us your comments. Everybody has an opinion. We got some this week I didn't agree with, but we respond to all of them and we treat everybody with the same respect that we want to be treated with. We know that you have strong opinions. That's why we like college football. So, on behalf of the crew, Anwar, thank you for your time. Dan, thank you for all the emails and texts back and forth. I'm Luke Thornton, and the name of the show is Talking College Football with Anwar, Dan, and Luke. We'll see you after the big Oklahoma Michigan game.
Ish.
All right.
But